back out here when you can spend more time. Get an Esplanade bus will bring you here, or the City Park Museum streetcar. Figure with Tear and Arrow, it's a little study on being stabbed in the back. It ain't lovely and it ain't cheerful, but it's absolutely accurate. But this, if you didn't have time for that, you can maybe get a little peek out here to the left into the sculpture garden. Some of the more neoclassical work are visible over there. All right. Now we decorate this park extensively for Christmas. We always have. And beginning 1989, we redoubled our decoration efforts in this park for a festival we call Celebration in the Oaks. We put millions of lights to this park. And then we drive through here bumper to bumper in our automobiles. And the festival's not simply a driving festival anymore. It's much of it is walking, and it's still wonderful. I hope you get to come out here. Esplanade bus, City Park Museum streetcar. And I don't believe it's on weeknights yet. That'll happen probably next week, but right now I believe it's only Friday and Saturday and Sunday. All right, let's go drive the Bayou North. Now we've already seen that the sea level water in the bayou is higher than the park. It's higher than the neighborhood in front of us. We're going to see more of all of that. We had 5 golf courses in this park. We got 2 now. Katrina's closed a bunch of it. In fact, they closed it all for 12 years. We got it. This is the old South Golf Course right here on the left. We made this a festival ground just before Katrina. The big festival out here on the left in this old golf course would be the Voodoo Fest. It's Halloween weekend each year. We put 4 major stages back there. Big stages, 4 of them with goth bands and speed metal bands, and kids with top hats and black paint and fingernails come from all over. It's a huge thing, tens of thousands of people, and they're all over the city in this bus, but the music's here. I miss them, they just left, but they'll be back next year. But the great news, the great golf news, right up here on the left, we're calling this course Bayou Oaks. It's only been open 6 months now. This was closed for 12 years by Katrina. That's the old West Golf Course and part of the old East Course, conglomerated into what we call it Bayou Oaks. And the bayou, of course, sea level, but for Hurricane Katrina, the water was 12 feet higher than that, driven by a 140-mile-an-hour wind from right in front of us. I know that's hard to imagine. The hard water, wind-driven hard water went through all these houses, up and down. Some of them still boarded up 12 years later. These boarded up houses are stripped out to the studs. They got new roofing material on them. They're not deteriorating. They're saturated with bleach inside. They're not deteriorating, but they're not fixed either. Hurricane Katrina was above the top windows on that pyramid roof for 4 days. Then the water went down to the gutter on that house and stayed for 1 month, because that's how high the water is right now in the bayou, sea level. If the water got out the bayou, it would go up to the gutter on that house over there. We're not going to let that happen again. And the flood control structure right there is defunct now. We let that bayou stay sea level. We have a once-a-day, 1-foot tide. The tide here is negligible. Spanish Fort, right here on the right. This fort was built 1777 by the Spanish to protect the main entrance to New Orleans, Bayou St. John. And the single grave right there, Sancho Pablo, Spanish officer. He got a bit close to a Native American girl. Her daddy killed him. For Hurricane Katrina, the flood was 4 feet higher than that wall right there, driven by a 140-mile-an-hour wind from right in front of us. Now this is everything outside of Spanish Fort right there. This is man-made land. Behind the levee on the right over here, there's a swimming beach on Lake Pontchartrain. You know, that's Lake Pontchartrain. That's the preferred route to France by sailing ship. You come out of that bayou over there, take a right, and go 30 miles east to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, 5 million years ago, this was part of the Gulf of Mexico. And we call it Lake Pontchartrain. It's really an estuary. It's got a 1 mile gap into the Gulf out there, so it's still connected to the Gulf. 5 million years ago, this was part of the Gulf of Mexico. And over the last 5 million years, the Mississippi River Delta constantly extends. And it came from 35 miles in front of us, all the way around here to 30 miles behind us, making new land and impounding this bit of the Gulf of Mexico into Lake Pontchartrain and building the land that New Orleans sits on now. That used to be the Gulf too, of course. So just an amazing thing. Our finest shrimp comes out of here. It's full of crabs. And y'all, this is the prevailing sea state. Our prevailing wind is southeast. And most of the summer it's like this. You can water ski out here. Now it chops up real quick if the wind goes anything like north. Now the pump houses, oh, I see they got the motors running today. This is a new pump house over here, brand new, as yet not operative. We're testing the motors and testing the pumps. We expect this to come online in about 6 months. But we got 50 of these. We got 50 of these pump houses nowadays. We had 25 before Katrina. And our flood insurance has come back to pre-Katrina cost. I know that's pretty hard to imagine. Lots of jobs, building, operating, maintaining the pump houses, but even more jobs, digging up the pipes that go into those pump houses. And the yacht club up here, this is Southern Yacht Club, second oldest yacht club in the United States, second only to New York Yacht Club. This club was founded by the tea clipper captains that sailed the clipper ships back and forth to China. Those captains built their mansions, most of the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, but this was their racing club over here. That building's new. The old one was knocked over in Katrina. The natural gas supply lines to the building fractured, and the bubble in natural gas in the floodwater ignited. That old clubhouse burnt to the water line, and then the fire continued from burning gas on the surface of the water, natural gas. Now for Hurricane Katrina, our boats, there's hundreds of boats in this marina right up here, you're going to see that. Our boats went across this levee to the left here. The wind was from our right. We had boats laying all around here and sticking up all out the lake. But those boats were from the other side, 24 miles away. Our boats, for the most part, went over this levee right here to our left. At the time of the Hurricane Katrina, I was the faculty advisor to the University of New Orleans sailing team. So the National Guard let me back here day after day to climb the pile of boats behind this levee right here, looking for our race boats. We all knew I couldn't do anything about it, but they'd let me back here. It was out of sightseeing. This lighthouse was knocked over, and the top half of that lighthouse was almost in the street right here. Private money, we just took it apart and put it back together. Now the reason I was in here early to see that pile of boats and actually be climbing it alone is pretty awesome. My wife at the time, Teresa, is an animal rescue person. And after Katrina, she and I were sitting west of here on a rice farm watching the clubhouse burn in the flood, realizing we weren't racing boats Wednesday night. We might never go home again. And Teresa was seeing pets, animals that had been left behind, struggling in the streets of New Orleans. She decided she was coming back. I came with her to try to make sure she didn't get killed. But if Teresa wasn't initially just feeding, sticking broiler pans of pet food through smashed front doors, every window, every door smashed, just reached through there, set a broiler pan of pet food across the threshold, with me standing in the middle of the street in the mud with 2 guns, turning around slow, looking for a threat. I never saw a threat. But if that wasn't taking place, I was here. This gate was shut, and this was just a pile of boats all down this hill. Fascinating scene. The pets did good and bad. As you might imagine, almost no cats drowned. And the previously invisible rodent population had been driven to the surface by the flood. The cats had a field day. The cat attitude was, where has this been all my life? And they had this cat utopia for about 2 months. And then at that point there was a major kitten bloom and a flea infestation that complicated the cats' lives. At that point, we began trapping the cats, treating them for fleas, neutering them, and putting them back where we got them. We shipped no cats out of here. They had a job. The dogs did less well. Many drowned in the streets, many drowned in the homes, and their carcasses were strewn about, including dog carcasses on rooftops. But most of the dogs lived, and they packed up instinctively in the street. So I'm standing in the middle of the street with 2 guns, looking mainly to the blown out windows. I figured there's a bad guys in a house. I never saw one. But a pack of dogs would come running by. Packs of dogs all over the city. The lead dog, a few weeks ago, he'd been laying on a sofa. He thought he was a sofa dog. Turns out he was a king. He liked it. He was good at it. The dogs really enjoyed the whole thing. Mostly they did survive, and they really had a blast until the fleas came. At that point, we started trapping the dogs, treating them for fleas, and shipping them out of here. Now the refrigerators, at a certain point, the government let everybody in here for the weekend. Now, basically, they want everybody here. Some people had stayed for the storm, but if they survived, they got out of here as soon as they could. Except for a few bad guys, but there's another story. But a number of bad guys. But basically, everybody had stayed. If they lived, they got out of here. Some people talked their way back in here, but basically, there wasn't anybody here. At a certain point, the government let everybody in here for the weekend. You could go to your house, get whatever wasn't already stolen at your blown out house, stolen or ruined, bury the contents of your refrigerator in the backyard, and then leave. Well, we didn't really bury the contents of the refrigerators in the yard. They didn't open for the most part. Apparently they tried to float in the flood, fell over, but stayed shut, floated on their side. And eventually the water was pumped out of New Orleans. They settled into the muck on the floor like everything else did. So we didn't open them. We wrapped them in tape, wrote Katrina graffiti all over them, and stood them out by the curbs. Eventually, thousands of tape-wrapped, Katrina graffitiized refrigerators stood back there by that bomb shelter in that beautiful thing. There was other places, piles of cars everywhere. And the water line was on everything. The big water line was sea level. But there were multiple water lines above and below sea level. On everything. Every house that survived, every pole, every tree, cars standing on, I will mention this White House on the radio, is still stripped out. There's a one on the corner. But the water line was on everything. And it still exists right up here. On a sign, a pre-Katrina street sign up here, I'll show you. But the stripe was on every single thing. Upon rebuilding, we put moldings at that height and memorialized at that level. But we're over that. Those moldings are coming down. It's a sign like this white one right here. Behind these trees on the right. Right here with all the arrows. Can you see that stain 10 inches down from the top of that sign? Yep. That's sea level. That stain is 12 years old. It's getting pretty faint. But that's sea level. That's the level of the lake back there right now. If the lake got in here, it would go up to that. The initial flood was 12 feet higher than that for 4 days. I know that's hard to imagine. And on the back of the sign, you can see the steps as the water was pumped out of here, the gradual progression of multiple water lines down the back. That stripe was on every single thing. Cars standing on their nose. Apparently cars float nose down. They end up standing on their nose, leaning on a house or a tree with a stripe at that height on everything. It's amazing. The church on the right over here, this Lakeview Christian Center, that's the new building. The old building was destroyed in Katrina. This congregation's boats paused. Everybody's boats were working 24 hours a day, but that church's boats paused 6:30 Tuesday mornings to pray over that flooded church. They still pray that Tuesday mornings at 6:30. Sometimes I can come to that. Katrina doesn't really figure into prayers anymore. That's 12 years ago. There's new stuff to pray about. We're still on the American Canal. Here comes the interstate highway right here. And the pump house on the right over here. Every pump has pipes coming to it. Many have pumps leading from it, unless they're right on the lake. And these are the discharge lines. There's 4 pipes laying against that sound wall over there. There's pipes under every street in New Orleans. There's multiple big pipes under the new programs. But these are exposed. Those pipes are everywhere. And again, this is the old American Canal. Eventually this railroad and another one took the traffic off of this canal. So in the late 1950s, as we looked for a place to put the interstate highway, lovely as this canal was, it wasn't making money. The railroad was doing that. So we covered the canal up and put the interstate highway on it. And the railroad running down to the left of this old canal right here. If you look right above those rails to the left, you can see thousands of crosses right there. That's one cemetery. That's Greenwood. About 75 burials beneath each of those crosses eventually. And our most luxurious cemetery on the right here, Metairie Cemetery. And behind this tree on the right here, the man on the horse. This is Confederate General Johnson. He was an American general before that. General Johnson's buried in there, as is General Beauregard, buried in there with General Johnson. All right, let's get down off the old American Canal and go uptown. All right, we'll get down off the old American Canal here in Carrollton. This canal did go to where the Superdome is now, so you can see the Superdome. Right out here to the left, as we come out of this last bridge, if you look right alongside the bridge, right to the left, the Superdome there. That's where this canal went, to the Superdome property. There was the turning basin, a giant pool we could turn the ships around in, send them back out the canal, past that lighthouse to the world. Perhaps you've heard that song, Basin Street Blues. That street named for that turning basin. Of course, jazz grew up around there where the Watermen were. And this is old Carrollton, part of New Orleans now. But this was a separate German Protestant town back here. We're going to see more of that. This was flooded terribly for Katrina. On the right over there, the old Carrollton shopping mall was destroyed. That's okay. We were looking for a place to put Costco. That worked out. Everybody's good. But on the left over there, we couldn't tear down the green roofs of Xavier University. Flooded as it was, the country cutter, sometimes pronounced Qatar, said their crown prince in here with a pile of money for Xavier. That is a Muslim, oil-rich country taking this Roman Catholic, predominantly black university under their wing. Quite a remarkable partnership. Xavier thrives like never before. As does most of New Orleans thrive like never before. And vestiges of the old Carrollton remain. The post office facade on the right over here has been retained. And beyond the post office, the Waldo Burton Memorial. God bless Waldo. The little boy died in 1918. And his father, a Cypress lumberman, built this orphanage in Waldo's honor. It's still an orphanage. And Rockin' Bowl, right up here on the right. If any of y'all made it to Rockin' Bowl, oh, maybe you can. Right up here on the right, Rolling Stone magazine called Rockin' Bowl the coolest bar in the world. Right here. Not no better than that, but it's cool enough. Bowling alley, dance hall, giant bar, music performance, restaurant, all in one room, greater than the sum of its parts. Rockin' Bowl. And right over here on the left, the lovely red brick structure. Our home for unwed fathers. They prefer, we call it Notre Dame Seminary. Pope John Paul II came here in 1987, and he stayed right there at Notre Dame. Pope John Paul II's visit here to New Orleans eclipses even the New Orleans Saints' first Super Bowl victory. The Saints got one parade for that Super Bowl victory. The Pope got 7 parades. Different orders of magnitude. And they'll have their back up shortly. Again, this is Old Carrollton on the right over here. This craftsman style home demonstrates the German influence in this architecture right here. We invited German home builders to come after the American Civil War. Hundreds came. They built anything we wanted anywhere, but this is their town. Carroll. And yeah, see the green streetcar coming. Maybe they got that fixed. The problem is if we put a casket in, the earth is coming out. It's because we're below sea level right here. And we're running pumps now to throw the water out of here. If we turn the pumps off, the water's going to rise right about this high, right here, even on this ridge right here. So we run the pumps, draw the water down till it's beneath the street, but we don't pump it down any lower than we have to. If we put a casket in the earth, it's in the water. And I'm calling this earth. This is mud. No big deal. They come out slow. We just put them back in. But we prefer this. Let's go look at these 3 little white tombs over here on the left. We much prefer this burial style right here. We think of this as ours. Most of the country thinks of it as ours. But we got this from the Spanish. You'll find this in Spain. You'll find it where the Spanish settled. But it just works great here with our water table. And we get about 75 burials in each of these tombs. The way we get all of that in there, there's 2 shelves in each of these, one over the other, kind of like bunk beds. The shelves are short, they don't go all the way to the back. And there's a brick-lined pit in the earth beneath the tomb. The first time the family needs it, we put the casket in there. And then we don't want to open it for a year and a day. Initially, there were infection control reasons for that wait, and the general unpleasantness at opening tombs too soon. But a year and a day is enough. That ensures a complete summer where they sit here and bake like cars in parking lots. You know, the summer here is not fun. It's just hot. A year and a day is enough. It's safe to open. It's comfortable to open. We can put the second casket in there. The third burial gets more complicated. The oldest casket will be pulled out, opened. The remains are transferred from the casket back onto that short shelf. Where those remains are pushed to the back, they fall off the back of that shelf into the pit beneath this tomb. The new casket goes in. So, about 75 burials, 2 caskets at a time. All the rest of those remains are mixed in the pit beneath the tomb. When the tablet on the front gets full of names, The norm would be to move that tablet on the side and start a new one in the front. Now, these folks put the new tablet on the side. That's fine. These folks, they're just putting plaques down the pilasters with more names. That's fine too.
Yeah. No. I just figure we'll loop.
Just do about 7 minutes.
Kind of see the shell. Based up those.
Or maybe that one had a recent entry. You know, addition.
Possibly.
That one too. Materials up. I'm not sure. You only come out and paint them and stack them regularly. How old is this?
Uh, 1910.
1886. Is the oldest. McKee. See? Marie
Mhm.
Dolores McKee. 1886.
Actually, yeah. You're right.
3 months old baby. Sad.
This one's wiped out.
Just right in time. That's the history. Ish.
1865.
Sisters in Mount Carmel. Oh, the sisters. Mount Carmel's probably no, it wasn't a convent. A school or something. A bunch of nuns there. And flags all along the sides. For the sisters. That's amazing. Huh? That's all together in the field. Very Catholic. Strong Catholics. Oh wow. Farther even with the lead on the one above. Big old richer families. Oh, it's priesthood.
Comes off and put this Creole Catholic iron gallery in here. This Protestant neighborhood like to die. but they got over it. And a couple of others followed suit. Big slave quarter off the back, it's modified, but this is slave quarter back here. Everything from the Garden District back to the French Quarter, pre-Civil War architecture, slave quarters common. And this adorable little houses on the left. These are side hall cottages. They're an outgrowth of the shotgun house. The shotgun house has only 2 openings on the front and no hall. You got to walk through every room through the whole house. So this little design developed, side hall cottage. They added a 3rd bay for a hall. The hall goes all the way down the side of the house. And the doors in that house, sliding pocket doors of red cypress, open onto the hallway. So if you need the privacy, you shut the sliding doors. But if you don't, you leave it open. And that hall becomes part of your room. And even more important, the hall windows are part of your room now. Got the light blue paint up under the eaves. That's real common in the Garden District. You can do it anywhere, though. You can do it on a shotgun. Certainly you can do it on a mansion. The light blue up under there, initially that was to trick birds and bees into feeling exposed to the blue sky and inhibit nesting. It works to a degree. And the second little yellow one on the right over here, just an interesting little American townhouse. The second yellow one here with a slave quarter sticking off the back. And that shed roof on the slave quarter fed the water, the rainwater, into that copper-topped cistern right there. That big red cypress wooden barrel plastered over. But we drank the rain here for 200 years. I mean, we got a lot of fabulous water falling from the sky here. Even in my childhood, a lot of my friends' grandparents collected the rain. They had more sanitary methods than that, but and whatever you do, do not pull out in front of these green street cars. They're 1922 vintage. They're very difficult to stop. They drop sand in front of their own wheels, and they can stop kind of halfway decent on a day like this. But a cold, rainy day, those drivers call it sick. The good news, you can get that job. Those drivers are scared.